Two sisters vanished in Yosemite National Park overnight. For 7 years, no trace existed of Emma and Sarah Martinez, until a camper's camera captured something that no one was prepared to see. The footage was grainy, taken at dawn through morning mist. At first glance, it showed nothing more than towering sequoias and granite cliffs. But when digital forensics experts enhanced the image, zooming into a distant clearing, two figures emerged from the shadows. Figures that bore an uncanny resemblance to the sisters who had disappeared without a trace 7 years earlier. The question that haunted investigators, that would consume the Martinez family, and that defied all logic was simple. What happened in those missing years? And what was caught on that camera? To understand what was captured in those few seconds of digital footage, we need to go back to the very night they disappeared. A night that started with laughter around a campfire and ended with one of Yosemite's most baffling mysteries. Emma Martinez, 24, was a kindergarten teacher from Fresno with infectious laughter and a love for wildflowers. Her youngest sister Sarah, 22, was a nursing student known for her fierce loyalty and adventurous spirit. Despite their different personalities, Emma the cautious planner, Sarah the spontaneous risk-taker, they were inseparable. The sisters had grown up visiting Yosemite with their parents, camping every summer since childhood. Their father, Miguel, had taught them to identify every bird call, every edible plant, every safe water source. Their mother, Carmen, had instilled in them a deep respect for the wilderness and its dangers. That September, Emma was dealing with a difficult breakup, and Sarah had just failed her nursing boards for the second time. They decided on a sister's trip to their favorite childhood spot, a secluded campsite near the Merced River, accessible only by a challenging 4-mile hike through dense forest. Yosemite National Park spans 1,200 square miles of Sierra Nevada wilderness. Its beauty masks inherent dangers, sudden weather changes, aggressive wildlife, treacherous terrain, and vast areas where cell phone service is non-existent. Since 1851, over 1,600 people have died in the park, and dozens simply vanish without explanation. Carmen Martinez remembered their last phone call vividly. Emma called me from the trailhead parking lot. She was laughing, saying Sarah had packed enough granola bars for a month. Emma promised they'd call when they got back to cell range. That was supposed to be 3 days later. That night was supposed to be just another camping trip, a chance for the sisters to reconnect away from the pressures of daily life. But it turned into a nightmare that would haunt their family for years to come. September 14th began as a perfect autumn day in Yosemite. The sisters reached their campsite by early afternoon, setting up their blue two-person tent beside a cluster of granite boulders that provided natural wind protection. The weather was ideal, clear skies, temperature in the mid-70s, with no storm warnings. Their campsite sat in a small meadow surrounded by towering pines, about a quarter-mile from the main trail. Emma documented everything in her journal, a habit she'd maintained since childhood. Her final entry, later recovered, described the most beautiful sunset we've ever seen and mentioned hearing strange echoes from across the valley around dinner time. Park records show 3 other camping groups in the general area that night. Rangers had noted nothing unusual during their afternoon patrol. The sisters had properly stored their food in bay-proof containers and followed all safety protocols. Around 8 p.m., according to a fellow camper named David Chen who was staying roughly a mile away, he heard laughter and the faint sound of a guitar coming from the direction of their campsite. Chen, an experienced backpacker, remembered the sound distinctly because it was the last human noise he heard that evening. But Chen also remembered something else, something that wouldn't seem significant until later. Around 10:30 p.m., as he was settling into his sleeping bag, he heard what sounded like a vehicle engine starting somewhere in the distance. This was puzzling, as no roads existed within miles of their location. The temperature dropped to 45 degrees that night, typical for the season. Morning mist was heavy, limiting visibility to about 50 yards. When the sun broke through the canopy the next morning, the forest was silent except for the sound of running water and morning birds. Chen was the first to realize something was wrong. He'd planned to meet the sisters at the trailhead for the hike-out, but when they didn't appear by the agreed-upon 9 a.m. departure time, he went to check on them. When the sun rose the next morning, their tent was empty, their sleeping bags cold, and the sisters were gone. David Chen's 911 call came at 10:47 a.m. on September 15th. Within 2 hours, Yosemite Search and Rescue had deployed their first teams. By afternoon, the operation had grown to include 50 searches, 2 helicopters, and 3 K-9 units. The initial assessment painted a confusing picture. The sisters' tent remained properly secured, with no signs of struggle. Their hiking boots sat neatly outside the entrance, meaning they had left barefoot or in socks. Most puzzling, their backpacks remained inside the tent, containing their identification, credit cards, and Emma's diabetes medication, which she needed daily. Search Coordinator Captain Jake Morrison, a 20-year veteran of wilderness rescues, found the scene baffling. In my experience, people don't just disappear. There's always evidence, torn fabric, disturbed vegetation, some indication of direction. This was different. It was as if they simply evaporated. The first significant clue emerged on the second day. Searchers found a pair of Emma's socks approximately 300 yards northwest of the campsite, snagged on a manzanita bush. The socks were damp with morning dew but showed no signs of blood or struggle. K-9 units picked up a scent trail that led toward the river, then mysteriously disappeared. Miguel Martinez arrived that afternoon, his face etched with desperate determination. A contractor by trade and experienced outdoorsman, he knew these mountains as well as anyone. "My girls are smart," he told reporters. "They wouldn't take risks. Something happened to them." Carmen Martinez organized volunteer search parties from their hometown of Fresno. Within days, over 200 people were combing the wilderness, including Emma's former students' parents and Sarah's nursing school classmates. The local media coverage was intense, with the story making national headlines. On day 4, searchers made another discovery that deepened the mystery. Sarah's hiking sock was found nearly 2 miles from the campsite, in the opposite direction from Emma's socks. This suggested the sisters had been separated. But why? Search teams expanded their radius to cover over 100 square miles of wilderness. Helicopters with thermal imaging equipment found nothing. Divers searched every accessible pool along the Merced River. Rock climbing specialists rappelled down cliff faces, looking for any sign the sisters might have fallen. But every lead ran cold, every theory hit a dead end, and days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and months turned into years. 7 years is a long time to live without answers. For the Martinez family, each passing day brought a mixture of fading hope and stubborn determination. Carmen converted Emma's childhood bedroom into a command center, covering the walls with maps of Yosemite, timelines, and photographs from the search. The official investigation remained active, but resources dwindled. Detective Lisa Santos, assigned to the cold case unit, continued following leads as they emerged. "We received hundreds of tips over the years," Santos explained. "Every few months, someone would call claiming they'd seen the sisters at a gas station in Nevada or walking along a highway in Oregon. We investigated every single one." The theories evolved over time. Initial speculation focused on animal attacks, bear encounters, though no physical evidence supported this. Others suggested the sisters had become lost, succumbed to exposure, and their remains were hidden in the vast wilderness. More troubling theories involved human predators, but no evidence of foul play ever surfaced. In year 3, a psychic contacted the family claiming to have visions of the sisters living in a remote cabin. Despite their skepticism, Miguel and Carmen hired a private investigator to follow up. The investigation led nowhere but cost them their savings. Sarah's would-be nursing class graduated without her. Emma's kindergarten students, now in middle school, occasionally sent cards to the family. The missing persons case inspired legislation increasing funding for wilderness search and rescue operations. The most painful moments came during false hopes. In Year 4, hikers found a woman's jacket matching Emma's description buried under leaves. DNA testing proved it belonged to someone else. In Year 6, a park ranger reported seeing two women matching their description near a remote waterfall. By the time searchers arrived, they found only footprints that led nowhere. Miguel developed a routine of driving to Yosemite every weekend, hiking different trails, calling out his daughters' names. Rangers knew him by sight and often joined him for portions of his searches. Carmen organized annual vigils, keeping their story alive in the media. Their youngest son, David, was only 16 when his sisters disappeared. Now 23, he struggled with survivor's guilt and the weight of being the only remaining child. I felt like I had to live for 3 people, he later reflected. Every achievement fell hollow because they weren't there to share it. The case attracted true crime enthusiasts and amateur investigators. Online forums dissected every detail, generating theories ranging from government cover-ups to alien abduction. While the family appreciated the attention, the wild speculation added to their emotional burden. Multiple alleged sightings occurred across the western United States. A convenience store clerk in Bakersfield swore she'd sold cigarettes to Sarah in Year 5, despite Sarah never smoking. A gas station attendant in Reno claimed Emma had asked for directions to Canada. Each report sent investigators scrambling, but security footage never confirmed the sightings. The case earned a segment on Unsolved Mysteries and featured in several true crime podcasts. The exposure generated thousands of tips but no concrete leads. FBI behavioral analysts created psychological profiles suggesting the sisters had either met with foul play or experienced some form of dissociative episode causing them to flee their old lives. By Year 7, even the most optimistic family members had begun accepting the possibility they might never know what happened. Carmen had started attending grief counseling, not for confirmed death but for ambiguous loss, the limbo of not knowing. And then, just when everyone thought the case would remain unsolved forever, something surfaced that would change everything. Marcus Webb was a 34-year-old software engineer from Portland who visited Yosemite annually. Unlike casual tourists, Webb preferred the park's remote areas, often hiking for days to reach locations rarely seen by other visitors. He carried professional photography equipment, documenting wildlife and landscapes for a nature blog he'd maintained for years. In early October, Webb embarked on a challenging 5-day trek through Yosemite's backcountry, following unmarked trails toward some of the park's most isolated regions. His route took him through areas that hadn't seen official search activity during the sisters' disappearance, terrain considered too treacherous for inexperienced hikers. On his 3rd morning, Webb awoke before dawn in a valley he'd never explored previously. The location was approximately 8 miles from the sisters' last known campsite, accessible only by crossing a dangerous river ford and navigating through dense forest without marked trails. As morning mist rose from the valley floor, Webb set up his camera equipment to capture the sunrise breaking through the canopy. He used a telephoto lens, shooting dozens of images as the light gradually revealed the landscape. At the time, he noticed nothing unusual, just the ethereal beauty of wilderness dawn. It wasn't until 3 weeks later, while processing images on his computer, that Webb noticed something extraordinary. In one frame, shot at 6:47 a.m. according to the camera's timestamp, 2 figures were barely visible in a distant clearing. At normal resolution, they appeared as tiny dark spots against the granite and vegetation. Webb's initial assumption was wildlife, perhaps deer or bears moving through the early morning shadows. But when he enhanced the image using professional photo editing software, magnifying the distant figures, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The figures appeared to be human. 2 people, walking together across a small meadow roughly 400 yards from his position. Their size and movement suggested adult women. Even more shocking, when Webb applied maximum digital enhancement, the facial features of both figures bore a striking resemblance to photographs he remembered seeing of the Martinez sisters. Webb contacted park authorities immediately. His call to the ranger station was initially met with skepticism. Over the years, dozens of people had claimed photographic evidence of the missing sisters. But Webb's professional credentials and the technical quality of his equipment warranted serious investigation. Detective Santos examined the original digital files within 48 hours. The metadata confirmed the images were authentic, shot at the specified time and location without digital manipulation. FBI forensic specialists were called in to conduct advanced image analysis. The enhanced photograph showed two figures walking parallel to each other, suggesting familiarity and comfort rather than one person pursuing another. Their clothing appeared worn but substantial, suggesting long-term survival rather than recent hiking attire. Most significantly, both figures appeared healthy and mobile, walking with normal gait and posture. But the photographs raised as many questions as they answered. If these were indeed the Martinez sisters, how had they survived 7 years in the wilderness? Why hadn't they sought help? And perhaps most importantly, where were they now? Was this real evidence of the sisters' survival, or just another cruel twist of fate that would lead the family down another dead-end path? The enhanced photograph sparked the most intensive investigation since the sisters' initial disappearance. Detective Santos assembled a task force including FBI specialists, wilderness experts, anthropologists, and digital forensics analysts. The images were subjected to facial recognition software, gait analysis, and environmental assessment. Dr. Jennifer Kim, a forensic anthropologist from UC Davis, studied the figures' physical characteristics. The height ratio between the two individuals matches Emma and Sarah's measurements, she reported. Body proportions are consistent, and the walking patterns suggest the same dominant-handedness documented in their medical records. The location where Webb captured the images presented its own mysteries. The clearing sat in an area of Yosemite that required expert-level wilderness skills to reach. No marked trails existed within miles, and the terrain included dangerous river crossings and steep rock faces that would challenge experienced climbers. Miguel Martinez studied the photographs with a magnifying glass, tears streaming down his face. "That's how Sarah walks," he whispered. "See how her left shoulder dips slightly? She broke her collarbone in high school volleyball." And Emma always walked with her hands clasped behind her back when she was thinking. Carmen was more cautious, having endured years of false hopes. "I want to believe it's them," she said. "But I've seen shadows turn into my daughters too many times before." The investigation team returned to Webb's photographic location within a week. Using GPS coordinates from his camera, they located the exact spot where he'd set up his equipment. From this vantage point, they could see the clearing where the figures had been captured, confirming the image's authenticity. Ground teams hiked to the clearing itself, finding evidence of human activity that hadn't been documented during previous searches. Small clearings in the vegetation suggested foot traffic, though determining the age of such disturbances proved difficult. More significantly, they discovered fire rings constructed from stacked stones, primitive but functional cooking areas that showed signs of repeated use. K-9 units were brought in to search for scent trails, but after 7 years, any human odors had long since dissipated. However, the dogs did indicate interest in several areas around the clearings, suggesting human presence at some point in the past. The team expanded their search radius, looking for any other signs of long-term human habitation. They discovered what appeared to be a basic shelter approximately half a mile from the clearing, a lean-to structure built against a large granite boulder, camouflaged with branches and moss. Inside, they found primitive tools fashioned from wood and stone, evidence of someone living off the land for an extended period. Weather analysis confirmed the location could theoretically support year-round survival for individuals with sufficient wilderness knowledge. The area included natural water sources, edible plants, and game animals. More importantly, it was positioned to provide protection from Yosemite's harsh winters while remaining hidden from casual hikers. The family's emotions oscillated between hope and fear. If the photographs truly showed Emma and Sarah, It meant they were alive but had chosen to remain hidden for 7 years. This raised disturbing questions about their mental state and what might have driven them to abandon their families. As investigators prepared for an expanded search of the region, they made another discovery that would shock even the most seasoned professionals. What they found in that remote part of Yosemite would challenge everything they thought they knew about the sisters' disappearance. 3 days into the expanded investigation, search teams made a discovery that transformed the case from mysterious disappearance to something far more complex and disturbing. Following a faint trail from the lean-to shelter, investigators located what could only be described as a primitive but organized camp, hidden in a natural depression between towering granite formations. The camp showed signs of long-term habitation by multiple people. 4 separate sleeping areas were arranged around a central fire pit, each equipped with handmade bedding constructed from pine boughs and animal hides. Crude but functional cooking equipment included carved wooden bowls, sharpened sticks for hunting, and a smoking rack for preserving meat. Most shocking was the discovery of personal items that definitively linked the camp to the Martinez sisters. Emma's distinctive silver bracelet, a gift from their grandmother, lay partially buried near one of the sleeping areas. Sarah's college ID card, though weathered and cracked, was found wrapped in plastic inside a makeshift storage container. But the camp revealed something else entirely, evidence of at least 2 other inhabitants. The sleeping areas varied in size, suggesting adults and possibly younger individuals. Clothing remnants included fabrics and styles that didn't match anything the sisters had owned, indicating other people had lived in this remote location. Detective Santos studied the layout with growing unease. This wasn't a survival situation, she observed. This was an intentional community. Someone had organized this camp for long-term occupancy, and the sisters were part of it. The most disturbing discovery came from Emma's journal, found wrapped in oiled cloth beneath a pile of stones. Her entries, written over several years, told a story that no one had anticipated. The journal revealed that on the night of their disappearance, the sisters hadn't been alone. They had encountered Thomas Richter, a 45-year-old former park employee who had been living illegally in Yosemite's backcountry for over a decade. Richter, who had been fired from the National Park Service in 2003 for inappropriate behavior toward female visitors, had established himself as a survivalist in the park's most remote regions. According to Emma's entries, Richter had approached their campsite claiming to be a ranger responding to reports of dangerous wildlife in the area. He convinced the sisters to evacuate immediately, leading them away from their campsite in the middle of the night. By the time they realized he wasn't actually a park employee, they were lost in terrain they'd never seen before. The journal described how Richter had initially presented himself as a protector, someone who could teach them to survive in the wilderness until rescue arrived. But as days turned to weeks, it became clear he had no intention of allowing them to leave. He used their isolation and dependence on his wilderness skills to maintain control. Emma's handwriting grew increasingly erratic as the entries progressed, suggesting psychological deterioration. She wrote about failed escape attempts, about Richter's increasingly paranoid behavior, and about the arrival of other recruits, lost hikers and vulnerable individuals whom Richter had manipulated into joining his isolated community. The journal revealed that Sarah had repeatedly attempted to escape during their first year in captivity. One entry described how Richter had convinced Emma that leaving would mean certain death for both sisters, as they lacked the skills to survive alone. He used their love for each other as a weapon, threatening to abandon one sister if the other attempted escape. But the most chilling revelation came in Emma's final entries, dated approximately 6 months before Webb captured the photographs. She wrote about a plan she and Sarah had developed, a desperate attempt to escape during Richter's periodic supply runs to distant areas of the park. The journal ended abruptly, with Emma's final words, "Tomorrow we try. If anyone finds this and we don't make it, please tell Mom and Dad we never stopped loving them. We tried to come home." Investigators now understood the true horror of what had happened. The photographs captured by Webb's camera showed the sisters during what may have been their escape attempt, 7 years after being manipulated and held against their will by a man who had been living as a predator in one of America's most beloved national parks. The discovery changed everything. This wasn't a story of survival or mysterious disappearance. It was a story of abduction, psychological manipulation, and the desperate fight of two sisters to reclaim their freedom. The revelation about Thomas Richter launched a massive manhunt throughout Yosemite National Park. FBI agents, U.S. Marshals, and specialized wilderness tracking units deployed throughout the backcountry. Richter's photograph, obtained from old Park Service employment records, was distributed to every ranger station and visitor center. Investigation into Richter's background revealed a disturbing pattern. After his dismissal from the Park Service, he had been arrested twice for stalking women near national parks but had disappeared before trial both times. He possessed extensive wilderness survival skills and intimate knowledge of Yosemite's remote areas, making him capable of remaining hidden indefinitely. The search for Emma and Sarah intensified with new urgency. If Webb's photographs truly captured their escape attempt, they might be attempting to navigate dangerous wilderness terrain without proper equipment or preparation after years of captivity. Their physical and psychological condition after 7 years of isolation remained unknown. 3 weeks after discovering the hidden camp, searchers found additional evidence along a ridge approximately 5 miles from Richter's base. Sarah's torn shirt was discovered caught on a tree branch, and Emma's distinctive hair tie was found near a natural water source. Both items appeared relatively fresh, suggesting the sisters had passed through the area recently. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A backpacker named Jennifer Walsh reported encountering 2 disheveled women near the Tuolumne Meadows area, roughly 15 miles from Webb's photographic location. The women had approached her camp requesting food and water but fled when she offered to drive them to park headquarters. Walsh's description matched Emma and Sarah's physical characteristics, and her account suggested the sisters were alive but remained fearful of contact with authorities. This behavior aligned with psychological profiles of long-term captivity victims, who often struggle to trust even potential rescuers. A coordinated search of the Tuolumne area led to the discovery of a small cave where the sisters had apparently taken shelter. Inside, investigators found more recent evidence of their presence, including a note written by Sarah. "E is sick. Need medicine. Don't know who to trust. Love you, Mom and Dad." The note indicated Emma's diabetes had worsened during captivity, creating a medical emergency that could prove fatal without proper treatment. Search teams expanded their efforts, focusing on areas with natural shelter and water sources where the sisters might seek refuge. On October 28th, exactly 7 years and 44 days after their initial disappearance, Emma and Sarah Martinez were found alive. They were discovered by a search helicopter crew near a remote alpine lake, where they had constructed a signal fire using techniques learned during their years in captivity. Both sisters were severely malnourished and psychologically traumatized, but alive. Emma was airlifted directly to a medical facility for treatment of diabetic complications. Sarah, though physically stronger, exhibited signs of severe post-traumatic stress and initially refused to be separated from her sister. The reunion with their parents took place under careful medical supervision, with trauma specialists present to manage the psychological complexity of their return. Thomas Richter was arrested 2 days later at the original camp location, where he had returned apparently searching for the sisters. He was charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, and multiple counts of endangering the welfare of others. Investigation revealed he had held at least 6 different individuals over the past decade, though Emma and Sarah were the only long-term captives who survived. The sisters' recovery was slow and complicated. Years of isolation, psychological manipulation, and survival stress had left deep scars. They required months of medical treatment, therapy, and gradual reintroduction to modern life. Both women eventually testified against Richter, helping to ensure his conviction and life sentence. Emma returned to teaching 3 years later, though she never again went camping. Sarah completed nursing school and now works with trauma victims. Both sisters married and have children, but they rarely speak publicly about their experience. The case prompted significant changes in national park security protocols and wilderness monitoring systems. Marcus Webb's photographs, which proved instrumental in solving the case, hang in the Park Service's Search and Rescue Headquarters as a reminder of how technology and persistence can solve even the most baffling mysteries. The Martinez family's 7-year nightmare had ended, but their journey toward healing would continue for years to come. Their story became a testament to the power of never giving up hope and the unbreakable bond between sisters who survived the unimaginable together. In the end, the camera didn't just capture an image, it captured the beginning of their journey home. What do you think really happened to the sisters? Could you survive alone in a forest for years? Share your thoughts below. If this story shook you, don't forget to subscribe for more real mysteries and unbelievable true crime cases.